that I was experiencing as a child and how to handle it as it came to me. I never seen it outside the norm, so I didn't develop a fear. Normally, what causes a fear is when you don't really understand something, it causes a condition that psychologists call cognizant dissonance. Yeah, that's Facebook. I don't know what these people doing with this video because they're not that Jillian, and then she's saying my voice is muffled. Am I muffled to anybody other than Jillian? Can I get a yes or a no? Because I need to know if I need to keep going or reset the video. Okay. So, let me see if I can ask Jillian a question. Dominic, can you hear me? Okay, so y'all can hear me good, Ree and Dominic? So, Jillian, I think it might be yours because they can hear me. They said I'm not muffled. And just added you again and see if they'll get you in here. Okay, so I'm gonna go on and continue as we see if we can get Jillian in. Anyway, so when I was talking to the sister, I get this person standing here, this older woman. She's standing there with her arms crossed, patting her feet, as if I know who she is, where she came from, and why she was there. We understand when we talk that any of these things come to you, and you have to ask them or order them to identify themselves. And the rule of the universe is if you ask anybody with um, a authoritative form, and you ask them a direct question as to their identity, the rules state that they have to reveal who they are to you in truth. So you have to ask them a direct question. Who are you? What do you want? Where do you come from? Now, if it's a what they call an evil or disagreeable force, spirit, being, entity, however you want to describe it, once you ask them to identify themselves, um, identify themselves because they can't control you when you make them identify themselves. So when I asked this lady, I'm like, "Who are you? Why are you here?" And she was like, "You talking to my baby, and I need to get her a message." I'm shocked, utterly stunned. I'm like, "What do you mean?" So I describe her to the person I'm talking to, and she like, "Oh my God, that's my grandmother." I'm like, "Your grandmother?" I'm like, "She's sitting here like I'm supposed to know who she is." And she stayed there, and she still come check on her with me. From time to time, she'll come and be like, "How my baby doing?" And I'll be, "Well, she's doing okay, and she's dealing with this or that." And she was like, "Oh, she'll be okay. She just got to walk the last mile." And I'd be like, "I know," and she'll be gone. I think the most disturbing of all of my psychic influences as of late has happened within the last month. But before I go into that, I want to deal with this fear thing. Fear is actually a deficiency, right, of a or a chemical imbalance in the physical body. When the emotions filter through chakra number 3 in the abdomen, if your vitamin D is low, if your intestines are out of balance, your fear will amplify. Your fear will get greater. Your fear will get bigger and stronger, and it'll cause you to be frozen or paralyzed with it because the fear is a barrier. It's there to prevent you from using something that you could benefit from using. Now, I don't know what's going on now because now I got another person that can't hear me. Can you hear me now, Jillian? Can you type me a message? Tell me if you can hear me. Okay. So Reed, it might be yours if you can't hear me. Jillian can hear me now, and she was having problems earlier. Okay, so and let's get back to this. So when we have what they know as a seasonal affective depression, SAD in psychology, the seasonal affective depression is treated homeopathically with vitamin D, D3. That's it. Whereas uh, the doctors never tell you all forms of depression, sadness, and different lower vibratory emotions can be traced to a vitamin D deficiency or a deficiency in a chemical or hormone that vitamin D either regulates, supports, or work in synthesis with. So the first thing we need to make sure when we have in bouts of fear is that our vitamin D, which is our natural stabilizer of the emotions, is in sufficient quantity in the body. The vitamin D is also a just for it's like when you have a child that's too hyper, his vitamin D could be low and can be coming out as an overexertion as opposed to an underexertion. And excuse me, y'all, that overexertion is equally as dangerous as the underexertion or the lack of exertion. So the fear will stop you from progressing in areas you should naturally progress. Fear will hold you paralyzed in a submissive position to all who has less fear than you. So, example, if you got two people, you got one that is filled with fear and one that just got a few fears, when they encounter a situation, the one who has the most fear has to take the follower position because the fear will prevent them from making the correct choices and decisions in their actions. So when we experience a psychic phenomenon that we never experienced before, and we go through the cognizant dissonance, is it called in psychology, that prevents us from um, identifying what we're experiencing. So that's why the fear of the unknown becomes like paralyzing to us. Is the cognizant dissonance? It takes us a minute. It's like when you wake up in a strange place, you're like, whoa, where am I at? That's cognizant dissonance. You're not able to immediately grasp or understand the event that is taking place. So it gives you a mild state of confusion. Now, this is what the fear is for, because that mild state of confusion is just long enough for the suggestion of to get in to cause you mental or emotional distress. That one moment of confusion, anything that looked like the answer, the first thing the mind sees, it'll see. But if you condition yourself to not fall for the first thing that comes into the mind and to challenge it head on with bravery and to push the fear aside, so I'm not going to just take the first answer that comes, I'm going to take the best answer that come or the correct answer. When you start conditioning the mind along those lines, when you experience a psychic phenomenon that you've never experienced before, then you can push that fear aside and proceed with bravery and with an understanding of this is not a abnormal sense, but an extra sense that we have. Now, my most disturbing uh, psychic phenomenon that most people probably would have been terrified of was um, I had a visit from um, Mike Tyson's trainer, Custody of Motto. Now, this kind of threw me for a loop. This guy was irate. He was like totally hostile that they did Mike the way that they done him. So I'm seeing this stuff Oh man, I can't believe they done that to my Mikey. He's the greatest that ever did it. He's the greatest champ that ever lived, and they did him. So I'm like, this is foolish, insane, and this can't be real. So fall back on my um, experiences and meditations, and it comes again. You got to get my message to my Mikey. You got to get my message to my Mikey. I said, okay, well, what's the message you want me to get to him? He said, tell my Mikey it ain't over. He's still the greatest. He can still go down in the books as the greatest that ever did it. He can make the bookends. He can be the youngest and the oldest. He can do it. That's my Mikey. I know what he can do. I'm like, man, I don't even know how to get the message to him. He said, somebody will get it to him. You just have to tell the message. Man, okay. And he was like, tell Rooney Mikey didn't know. Like, Mikey didn't know what? He said, he don't know what you're talking about. Tell Rooney Mikey didn't know. I'm like, okay. So whatever that was, could have been a very terrifying experience for me had I not understood how to overcome the fear aspect in dealing with it. And the fear aspect is always a pivotal aspect in dealing with almost any aspect of life. So we have to make sure that our vitamins are properly within our system to help our system work correctly. We have to understand that when we experience something new, that we don't jump on the first definition or explanation for that experience, that we only seek the correct answer or the best answer. By doing that alone will ease the fear of it'll ease the fear of most things. When we understand that when we face with a new challenge, that it's normal to have some apprehension. It's normal to have some unrest. But in the midst of that, we still have to be brave enough to try to understand the experience without letting fear make us flee from the experience and prevent us from incorporating our other higher aspects of self. So your references for overcoming fear rests in for those who are Christian in biblical dialogue, where fret not thyself because of evildoers. So right there is telling you don't be afraid of those who do evil. And you have another one that's an old maxim. It's in Latin, but it basically says fear none. So when you understand what fear none means, meaning have no fear, when the fear is gone, your potential becomes limitless. Meaning that once your potential has been reached, or once you have the desire to reach your potential, the only thing you have to overcome is the fear of striving in the direction that overcomes that potential. We're going to go back over this information again whenever me and Jillian can get connected on a live, because this was supposed to be a collaboration. And my video that I was planning next was Saturday at noon would be the Truth in Plain Sight, over understanding X-Men, Planet of the Apes, and there was one more, Panther. Because there's so much symbolism in each of those animations in pop culture that they deserve to be pointed out so people know that the rule is this. In this three-dimensional fixed position reality, anybody that knows are authorized to use whatever they want to deceive you. But in the deception, they have to give you the opportunity to discover it. And so what they do to confuse you is they veil it. They give it to you in plain sight, and then they tell you, oh, don't really pay it no attention because it's an animation for children. It's for kids. And so now they put out government documents. In the government documents now that they don't want you to really notice or pay attention to, they are animating them and making them look like comic books. And so I decided on my next video I would deal with why do they tell us the truth in fictional depiction. So that'll be my Saturday video. For this one, I'm gonna have to try to figure out how to get on with Jillian, so we can get the collaboration aspect of this down, because when you deal with the fear, you have to deal with it from the yin and from the yang, from the masculine and from the feminine, because it's only through the unison of those two working together can you pull the self up, the inner self, high enough that fear is no longer a factor. And fear is also controlled through fasting. All emotions, anybody that's emotionally unstable should practice fasting, because the unstable emotions, and working on the podcast, Zach. So the unstable emotions, once you control your appetite, you become in control of those emotions. Those emotions do not go unanswered, because they are controlled from your third chakra, which is controlled through a nerve ganglia in your abdominal region. It's called a chakra. So here, where you fast, you see in every single spiritual practice on earth, religious or non-religious spiritual practice, that fasting is prescribed. But what they are not telling you about the fasting is the many, many, many reasons. But the most important one is the control of the emotion body, because the emotion body springs from the center of the self, just below the heart chakra. Once you can control the emotions, you can activate your heart chakra on a higher level. And once you become mentally astute, and your heart chakra or your energy level rise from your emotional chakra to your heart chakra, which is the love chakra, it changes who you are at your core. When that happens, fear can't exist, because you are vibrating at the fourth chakra, which is fourth vibrational density. And it comes across as a radiant hue of green, almost emerald in appearance, as it pierces the chakra and radiate out into the world. So when you talk about mind, magic, and the various forms of what they call divination, conjures, psychic abilities, and things of that nature, we learn from trial and error early on to not discuss it, not to deal with it, because people talk down on it. They look at it as other than what it is, and that's part of your higher spirit self. So the spirit is aware of things the physical self is not aware of. So the spirit, in turn, translates this into imagery in the mind. So this is what they call psychic phenomenon. Spirit sees something in the spirit realm that you need to see in the physical world. But your brain does not translate the language, which is sacred geometry, of the spirit realm. So what does the spirit body has to do to get the message down into the three-dimensional bodies? It has to translate it into something that can be picked up by one of what we call the five senses. Normally it gives us an internal visual dialogue or an internal audio dialogue or it gives us what they call kinesis, which is the feeling. You will feel something. That's the most difficult to translate because you have to relate the feeling that you are having with the feeling that another person having if you're doing a psychic reading. And that's not always easy, and that's where most of the errors in psychic readings come from, is the empathic nature required in order to properly translate what your spirit body is telling you or getting from the other person's spirit. Because the spirits commune. Anytime we walk past somebody, our spirits greet each other, whether we are aware of it or not. It's like we walk down the street and we see somebody in the distance and something tells us don't take our eye off that person. And then they get close, we find out they're hostile to us. Our spirit picked it up and it translated it into a form that we can perceive in 3D